Hello everybody, my name is Araceli, and today we will be talking about test strategies. So what are test strategies? Test strategies are exactly what it sounds like. They are strategies that help you prepare for a test, whether it's a specific way of studying, group reviews, or a routine you might have. If it helps you prepare for a test, it's a test strategy. So here's your first discussion. Well, since you're probably reading this by your own or you do have a partner, you could take some time to think about this question. What are your test strategies before taking an exam? Do you do anything special before taking a test? Do you usually cram the day before? Does cramming work for you, or do you think you can prepare in a better way? So what exactly do you do before taking an exam? Yes, probably everybody studies, but how do you study? Do you do it in groups? Are you better with background noise? Are you better at the library, secluded from everyone? What is it that you do? Just take some time to think about that. Okay, moving on. So here's just some general guidelines that you should do before you study, before you take the exam. Remember, know the content of the exam. Know how you will be tested or evaluated. Set aside time to study and review your own knowledge of the subject. So, know what's going to be on the test pretty much. Know what the test is going to be like. Is it going to be multiple choice? Is there going to be an essay? Set aside some time to study and review your own knowledge of the subject. What do you know already about the subject without going and looking at the material? So here's an activity for you. Look at the following list of numbers, words, pictures. Don't write it down, just read it to yourself for 1 minute. 1, 2, 8, 5, 5, 2, 3, 6, eyes, 45, 63, heart, eagle, 75. Just take a moment, don't write it down, just read it to yourself. Okay. So I want to introduce you guys to something called the curve of forgetting. This is a very interesting hypothesis. It's a hypothesis that shows the declines of one's memory about a subject over time. So this is basically just showing what your memory goes through over a month. And here we see this line that says, somebody who doesn't exactly look at the subject that they have to study for every day, their memory goes down a lot. By day 30, it's almost at the very bottom, when at the beginning it's at 100%. This basically says that if you study every day for a few minutes, if you start off studying for 10 minutes, studying for 5 minutes, 2 to 4 minutes at the very end, you'll remember everything at 100%. You won't have to go back and cram for a test exactly. You'll be much more familiar with the subject that you have to study, and it'll be a lot better for you. Now let's go back to our first activity. Do you remember the sequence of numbers, words, and symbols? Try to remember it really quick. See if you can. You probably did not remember the entire sequence correctly because you didn't write it down and didn't have time to review over it. Your brain didn't effectively learn what it just saw and therefore can't remember without some type of review. So you probably didn't remember the entire sequence of letters, words, symbols, or whatnot because you didn't exactly have time to review it. You didn't exactly have time to look back at what you had written because you didn't write it down. So it's just kind of up there. It's just kind of a little scrambled probably. This time you can write down the sequence and keep looking at it throughout the workshop. By the end of the workshop, you should be able to recite it if you study it well. So look at it again, write it down. 1, 2, 8, 5, 5, 2, 3, 6, eyes, 4, 5, 6, 3, heart, eagle, 75. So, write it down. And throughout the workshop, just keep looking at it. I know this workshop isn't very long, but this is just a tiny little example of what the curve of forgetting emphasizes on. I'll give you a minute to write it down. Okay. So yeah, so this is how the curve of forgetting works. If you review for a short amount of time each day, you won't need to cram for your tests and will have a 100% retention rate. This is a very interesting hypothesis, and I do agree that it works very much. How many times have you gone to class and you know the subject very well, but then 20 days later when you have to take the test, you remember it sort of, but not as well. Well, if you look at this material every day for a few minutes, you'll be able to remember it 100% without having to cram and being worried about whether you'll remember it as well as the first day you learned about it. So how important is note-taking? Note-taking is very important. It is important to take notes when you read and when you're in class. A common effective way of note-taking is known as Cornell notes. So now we will watch this video. Okie dokie, hope you enjoyed that. So how you take notes is eventually up to you. The best way to do so is to summarize what you have learned or what you have read in your own words so you remember it better. If you write something down, don't write it word for word from the book unless you are being tested on exact definitions, but if it's a concept, be sure you understand it and you can put it in your own words. You can paraphrase it to the way that you will remember it because you were the one that thought of it originally. So just remember, just summarize what you've learned. So here's another discussion or, a thought to think about. Do you have any strategies during an exam? How do you feel while taking an exam? Do you have any strategies that help you calm your nerves, keep you positive, etc.? So how do you feel while you're taking the exam? Like if you get really nervous, what do you do? Do you just stop? Do you freak out? Do you go to the restroom, throw up really quick, come back and take the test? What is it that you do? Just take a moment to think about it. Okay. So here's some simple tips of strategies during a test. Be positive. Use your time wisely. Preview the exam. Flip through the questions before actually starting. Break big questions into smaller parts. Use the process of elimination and multiple choice. If you have an essay, make sure to set enough time to write it. So number one is definitely be positive. Don't come in thinking, oh my God, I'm going to fail this. Use your time wisely. Make sure if you have an essay to write at the end that you set aside enough time to write it. Don't spend too much time on one question. Preview the exam. Flip through the questions before actually starting. This actually always helps very much so you know what's coming. You won't come across a question and think, oh man, I totally forgot about this and I didn't have enough time to think about it. break big questions into smaller parts. Sometimes big, long questions are very intimidating, but if you break it into smaller parts, it will be easier to understand and easier to answer. Use the process of elimination and multiple choice. This has always helped ever since you were little and had to take those standardized tests. The process of elimination works very well. If you have an essay, make sure to set enough time to write it. Like I said before, use your time wisely. So do you have any trouble with essays? Write an outline before your exam if you already know the prompt, or a short outline during. Outlines help you organize your thoughts so you don't ramble in your essay and get a low score. So if you write an outline for your essay, your thoughts will be much more organized, and that way when you're writing your essay, you won't ramble on one thing for a long time and then have no space to keep writing about a different subject. This way, you won't get points off for, putting in irrelevant information to your essay. You'll have everything organized very well, and etc. Is there anything you do after you take your test and find out what grade you got? Do your strategies help you? So what do you do after you find out what grade you got? Say you got a B. What do? Do you find out what you got wrong? How you could get an A? Just think about this for a second. Okay. So after an exam, you definitely should know your grade on the exam and find out what might have hurt your score. So let's say your teacher didn't pass back the test for some reason, which they usually should. Go up to the teacher and ask exactly what you should work on, and they will probably tell you. They'll tell you, okay, you need to work more on this because that's what really affected your score. Work on a specific section that hurt your score. Example, if you didn't do as well writing an essay, focus on your writing skills. UHD offers the Writing Center. We have many tutors that can help you with your writing skills. And also know what to expect on the next exam. Is the next exam going to be the same format? Is it going to be different? What material, is it going to have material from this exam? Know what to expect. So these are just a few tips you should do after you take an exam. So remember that ultimately how you do on your test is up to you. Aim for the highest score you can possibly get. Be positive, set aside enough time to study, and don't forget your number 2 pencil. The first thing, aim for the highest score you can possibly get, is very important. So many people think, oh, I'm not good at math, so I'm probably going to get a B on this test. No, always aim for the highest grade you can get. Always aim for an A. And I know it might not seem very realistic to some of you, but if you aim for an A and you stay positive, and I promise you, you will do very good on the test. So thank you guys for sitting through this. My name is Araceli, and thank you very much.